Hello again. Yes, we're back on the VMAX. So, where are we up to? We left it, didn't we, with a broken ECU. I'd soldered this back in its box and I'd basically washed my hands of it. But after reading everybody's comments, I'm going to have a go at trying to fix it. So, the strong consensus seems to be that the capacitors, these electrolytic capacitors, are almost certainly all duff, because this is knocking on the door of 40 years old and there's just no way these type of capacitors can stand the test of time. And from reading the comments, doing my own little bit of research, and then some very, very helpful people in my Discord group basically saying, 90% of the time when this type of electronic NUS goes wrong, it's the capacitors that fail. So I've got the soldering technology to replace all these capacitors, so that's what I'm going to do. I think ultimately it's going to end up with an aftermarket EC. Well, it is. I've spoken to the customer and he's fine spending the money. But I'm just like, just hang fire. Let's just have a go at replacing the capacitors on this board, because if it works, I'll be flabbergasted. But it's got to be worth a try. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just initially trying to determine what I actually need to buy. There are some diodes on the board. In fact, let me show you. Yeah, so I think there's about 8 or 10 of these diodes. They look, well, whether they function as a diode still, I don't know, but they look pretty broken to me. So I'll make sure I understand the polarity before I remove them. So I'm going to get some replacements of those. And then I need to identify what the capacitors are. Let me show you what I've seen so far. There appears to be 2 types of capacitors. There's these, which are 25 volt, is that 10 microfarad? These are the blue ones, and then there's some black ones. That one's 50 volt. Is that 2.2 microfarad? I don't know whether that... Does that make sense in terms of what I'm reading? Because I don't really understand what I'm looking at. Well, I sort of understand. I had this plan that I would remove some of them and then test them with a meter. And then it occurred to me that actually I don't have the technology to test capacitance. My daily driver multimeter, which is a Snap-on Vantage Pro, doesn't have that functionality, and then my picoscope obviously doesn't. I have got a couple of old ancient multimeters that I used when I first started. Batteries have been left in them. I think they're well dead. So I found this on Amazon. No idea if it's any good. Gets good reviews. Cheap little... handy to have this sort of meter knocking around, I suppose. But this has the ability to test capacitance. And I thought, oh, that'd be perfect. And then I was educated by somebody in my Discord that explained to me that actually if you really need to understand, if a capacitor's good or not, you need is it ESR meter? And the way it was explained to me was, when you test a capacitor with a meter like this, it's using DC voltage across the capacitor, whereas an ESR meter will use AC, and it's apparently a far more accurate, better way of testing a capacitor. So I didn't waste my money. It was like 30 quid, and having a little meter like this kicking around, I'll probably put it, I've got like an emergency toolbox from my motorhome. I'll probably put it in there or something, just so it's, yeah. But I'll have a play. I'll remove a couple of capacitors and have a measure. There's a capacitor on this board which is clearly this one here in the corner. That's the one. Do you remember when I washed it with acetone, the cover came off it and it had all sorts of stuff leaking out of it? I mean, that one's definitely bad. But apparently they're telling me that all these electrolytic capacitors, they just can't stand the test of time. This is knocking on, I think I said, didn't I? This is knocking on the door of 40 years old. So I'm going to replace all these waffleage and then see where we end up. What else do I want to say? Oh, I got an upgrade. So this is my old, I found this, I haven't used it for ages, my old solder sucker. And then when I was looking at multimeters, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I got an upgrade. Got a new solder sucker. Got a little high temperature focus, silicon end on it. Made getting the, I was using solder wick before to get the board out. This, God, it was heaven to use. And this will be great for removing the components rather than trying to wick the solder away. Right, let me get one of these capacitors off this board and let's have a prod of it with a meter, see what we get. Oh, it works so much better than my other one. Melting? Yes. Okay. Thankfully, the boards are marked positive, negative, so I haven't got to try and work out or mark, Is that in focus? Probably not. It's better. Yeah, the boards are marked with a positive and negative for the capacitors, so I haven't got to figure that out. And then, what's that? 25 volt, is that 10 microfarads? So I've got that one, and I've got that one, which is a 0.50 volt, 0.47 microfarads. Let's get a meter on them and test them. Yes, there is beer involved. This is late night Superbike surgery. Okay. So the black one was, what did it say? 0.47 microfarads. That's 470 nanofarads, isn't it? Milli, micro, nano, pico. Oh, look at that. 474 nanofarads. So that is going to be fucking dead nuts on, isn't it? So I've just pulled another one. That one is dead completely, it would seem. I've just pulled another one off the board. It's 10 microfarads apparently, according to the writing. Oh, that one's doing something. Come on now. Yeah, so it should be 10, and that's 6 microfarads, so out of spec, but I'm getting a reading on that one. Right, I've got a sense of what I need to order now. So I'm going to go away, order what I think I need and some diodes, and we will reconvene. Progress has been made. Had a delivery. RS components next day, thank you very much. So I've got a selection of caps to repair this ECU. Now we're in a weird position where this might be a little bit of a race against time, because I've also ordered a replacement new ECU, a Carmack, however you say it, same as the other one, the red one that was on it originally when it got here. That's ordered. That's going to be here in the next, I don't know, week probably. But I'm up against it in terms of time, because this isn't going to be a 5-minute fix. The way the conversation went with the customer was, I'm happy to try and repair this now. You're not paying any labour. This is sort of on me at this point. And he's like, that's great, Jim, but I kind of want the reliability of a new ECU, and I kind of see his point. So this is turning into a little bit of a side project. And if the new ECU arrives before I get a chance to fix this and try it on the bike, I'm not sure how this is going to go down. I might end up then, assuming the new ECU works okay and the bike is fixed and out the door and gone, I'll end up doing this in my spare time, and then the next time I get a VMAX in that this would potentially work on, with the customer's permission, I might try it. And yeah, this might turn into a bit of a side project now, which is a little bit of a shame. I don't want to be beaten, but there is a customer involved. This isn't my bike, so we've got to play the game a bit. Right, so that's that. Let's wait and see what happens next, basically. It's car Mo. I do apologise. Look what just turned up. Replacement ECU TCI box. Let's get it on the bike, see what happens. It's beaten the other ECU to the back on the bike game. Haven't had time to do any of the repairs on the other ECU, so this is going to get on the bike, and if it runs correctly, which I'm assuming it will, then yeah, we're not going to get the opportunity to repair the other ECU, and yeah, a bit of a shame, but you know, this is a hopefully profitable workshop, so you know, lines have got to be drawn. Anyway, let's get this on the bike, see how we go. On the bike, just an observation, but it's in a 3D printed case. It's a fucking awful 3D print. You can see how it's lifted off the bed here. Massive elephant's foot on it. There's a split there. I mean, that is just... that makes me nervous that the... I'm sure it's fine. It's just not a very good... what's the word? Indictment of their quality when it's in such a shoddily printed 3D case. You could I know a few things about 3D printing. It's one of the things I'm interested in, and it would be a really, really, really easy thing to print perfectly, a case like this. Printers these days, there's no fucking excuse for this. Just awful. Anyway, I digress. So, I'm probably just trying to kill time because I'm too scared to start this bike. Right, so full choke, got fuel supply hooked up, ignition, just make sure the HT leads are on. Yes, contact. Alright, well that's a good start. Sounds alright on choke. Let's get a little bit of heat in it and I'll bring it back in. So it sounds a little bit, starts lovely, sounds a little bit stumbly, ticking over. Rev's nice, and it's on 4 cylinders. It's not doing the whole misfiring and coughing through these 2 rear cylinders, which was the problem we had. I think, fucking hell, the irony. I mean, it stood so long, maybe it needs its carbs cleaning again. Fuck, imagine. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the ECU back in its little hidey hole, screw it down, get the airbox on. Let's go and blow the cobwebs out of it. That's the only way we can really get a measure of how well it's running, because it's spent half its blooming life in the last few months just on a workbench ticking over and sort of half running. Yeah, let's get it together. Let's go road test it. Okay guys, road testing time. Airbox is all on. It's basically all back together again. Put some fresh fuel in the tank. I have had it running in the workshop, so it's warm. Sounds sweet enough. Ticking over nicely. Let's see what it actually rides like. Fucking hell, this has been a long time coming. What is it? 6-8 weeks probably I've been dicking around with this bike on and off. Well, how's that camera? Does that want to be moved forward a bit like that? Maybe? Is that better? Possibly, maybe. What to say? So initially, tiny little bits of throttle. It's nice and smooth. I've got no popping and banging on a decel, which is often the case with the carburetors on these when that idle air shut-off diaphragm is split, like these were. yeah, so far, just get on this little straight bit down here and give it some rice. Not too much rice, you understand. By the way, it's a national speed limit on this bit of lane. Well, that's alright, pull's quite strong. I think I'll do my normal road test route. Whoa, yes! Well, it's looking like it's fixed finally. God, I'm worried about the wind noise and what my audio's like. So what to say? I was thinking as I was preparing for this road test what I was going to say, and you know, we started this whole series of videos with me saying, what kind of an idiot would put an ECU on a bike? Yeah, the irony isn't lost, and we've ended up with another ECU on this bike. If you watch the whole video series, you'll know that it's really the carburetors with a car crash. They were, you know, split diaphragms, broken slides. I mean, they were just awful. So the big issue was the carburetors, and then for some reason the dealer that was originally looking at it hadn't done anything with the carbs, and they decided it needed an ECU, and they'd baked in a bad timing issue on the rear two cylinders. Anybody that's been in the trade for any length of time, in, you know, the last sort of 10 years or so, will know that there's a real problem with new aftermarket parts being bad. It's certainly an issue in the car game. Some of the car mechanics I know, it used to be, you know, less than 1% of the time you might have a dodgy new part, but bloody hell, these days, I mean, it's, you know, you sort of 5+% of the time you get aftermarket parts that are new, that are faulty out of the box, which is just fucking awful. So that's what's happened in this case. The other guy that was working on it has baked in an ECU problem, which was a bit of an arsehole to find. But oh yes, loads of go. I'm pleased to say it's fixed. So I guess this is the end of this series of videos. Finally, I can ring the customer and give him the good news. What else did I want to say? I just wanted to mention my Discord, which is like a chat group. You've got to be a patron to be part of it. That's growing, not exponentially, but it's growing on a weekly basis. Loads of really cool people in that Discord group now. The group is all about fixing motorbikes, not riding them. So there are lots of other guys like me that do it for a living. There are some keen guys, you know, that do it as a hobby, and we all muck in and help one another. So, you know, if you are a repairer, sometimes you can feel like you're a little bit on your own. Do you know what I mean? You've got a problem with something and you think, oh fucking hell, and you're banging your head against the wall. Well, it's a great group to join, because, you know, having people as a sounding board that have got real world experience can really help. And we've had some successes, all putting the hive mind together and coming up with solutions to problems. So that's pretty cool. So if you can, the way to support the channel is to become a patron. It's just £1 a month, that's the minimum, and then you can join the Discord and get involved with the conversation, or you can just watch the conversation tick by and, you know, just observe if you like, fly on the wall sort of thing. That's it, I'm done. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.